When we look at business activities and transaction processing, first we will have to look at what are enterprise systems. A system is a combination of hardware and software. Hardware is the infrastructure, and the software is a set of instructions that uses the hardware. A system captures data about events. There are four aspects that it captures. We can talk about these four aspects as 4Ws. Who is involved in this event? Where did this event happen? When did it happen? What resources are exchanged for this event? These data or items of information are captured by the system. Within an enterprise system, there are two basic types of data. The first are the master data. They are already there in the enterprise system. Then there are business event data or new data that are captured by the enterprise system. Most enterprises cluster their major business events into two processes. These two major processes are the order to cash process or the revenue process, or purchase to pay process or the expenditure process. The order to cash or the revenue process has 6 steps. To generate revenue, there has to be a request, a quotation is made, then a sales order is processed. The third is to pick goods and pack them up for shipment. Fourth is to ship them to the customer. Fifth is when they are shipped, they are being billed to the customer. And the sixth is follow up with the customer when the goods are received and accepted for payment. Purchase to pay, the expenditure process has 5 steps. First is the requirements to purchase items ascertained. Then a purchase order is generated, and then it's sent to the suppliers. And the third is to receive goods. Once the goods are received, the supplier sends the invoice, and the invoice is checked against the order. And then fifth is to process the payment to the supplier. All these aspects, all these steps are generating data for the enterprise. We talked about the enterprise, and enterprise software has 5 modules. A typical enterprise software or enterprise resource planning software has 5 modules. The first one is the sales and distribution module. It's where the sales processes are maintained. The order entry, shipment, and billing. The second is about the purchase side, the materials management module. The purchase order process and the goods receipt process. The third is the financial accounting aspect, where the general ledger is maintained, accounts receivable for the sales, and accounts payable for the purchases, and then for the staff or the human resources, the payroll. These events and transactions are maintained in this module. The fourth is the controlling and profitability analysis. This is the reporting module where it analyzes this data that's captured through the sales module, materials module, and the financial module and generate reports. These generated reports could be in relation to the cost center to analyze the costings, and then it could be about profitability, or it could be about activity-based accounting and budgeting. The fifth module is about the human resources. This module is about the staffing, is about recruitment, administering personnel, payroll processing, the training and development, and travel related to staff. We talked about the data, and we said this data, some of this data are already there in the enterprise, which are the master data, and there are new events occurring in the enterprise, and that generates data, and this data needs to be accepted into the enterprise. When it accepts this data into the enterprise, there is a central database that retains one version of data elements, which is the database. Then there are new events that are taking place. We need to verify this data for its accuracy and enter into the database. To do that, we have to follow certain quality checks to ensure that the data that's been accepted into the master data sets are consistent with the data, with the enterprise rules that we follow. Enterprise system enforces certain data standards and business rules. Let's look at this enterprise or the business rules now. These rules apply to the business events. These business events take place in relation to sales, purchases, and also human resources. Data that we collect and accept should be relevant to the enterprise. They should go through certain checks like completeness, accuracy, and so forth. They should be verifiable and neutral. An enterprise follows 3 rules before accepting data. These rules are independent rules but can be used in combination in accepting data. The first rule is the hierarchical rule. The hierarchical rule is about making decisions and, for example, approving invoices. Formula or the scenario rule is about approving key performance indicators or to manage risk. The third are about policies, and these policies related to things like annual leave, sick leave, and disaster responses on health and safety aspects in the enterprise. Let's take some examples of these enterprise rules. Example of a policy is about the evacuation. When the siren sounds, alarm sounds, the staff are required to leave the building for health and safety regulations. The hierarchical rule is who is accepting a purchase order, who is generating a purchase order, who is approving it, who is placing the order. A formula rule is about which customers are given credit. So there is a formula that is applied, and based on the credit score, it is decided a customer is given credit or otherwise. These rules, enterprise rules, can be applied to various processes. We talked about 2 major processes. We can extend that into 3 major processes: sales process, purchase process, and human resource process. Let's look at a purchase process. In a purchase process, we prepare a specification before purchasing and check against the budget. Then a purchase requisition is prepared. It is being checked by someone who is authorized before making that requisition. Then quotations are obtained from suppliers, and select a supplier based on a purchasing panel or approved set of suppliers in the enterprise. Issue the purchase order to the selected supplier, and they receive goods from the supplier. Once goods are received, they are checked against the invoice received from the supplier, and then prepare the payment for the supplier, authorize that payment, and then pay the supplier for that invoice. And that payment is recorded in the account, in the cash book. In this process, purchase process, we can say that we have followed number of activities, related activities, sequential activities. We can now look at these individual activities and how this business or enterprise rules apply here. Policy. The policy applies to choosing suppliers and reviewing the obtained quotations. Hierarchical rule applies to purchasing orders prepared after preparing specification and checking against the budget and who's approving this purchase order. Formula rule applies selecting suppliers based on a purchasing pattern. An enterprise systems brings 2 benefits. These 2 benefits are accuracy, and that accuracy leads to effective functioning. And second is the timeliness. Timeliness leads to efficiency. An enterprise system brings these 2 benefits by having a single database. All this data that's collected is in one place. Because they are in one place, in a central database, they can be integrated and they can be shared to make decisions by relevant parties. This data, because they are collected into a central place, and they can be processed. They're process oriented rather than functional oriented. What it means is that a database would have data from human resources, purchases, sales, and accounts, whereas a function will have singular data, such as accounts will have accounting data, sales will have sales data, sales function will have sales data, accounting function will have accounting data. Whereas the database will have all this data, can connect to all this data, and it can process this data, and therefore it is process oriented. Because it has the enterprise system can bring this data into one place, it can standardize the processes, business processes, can have this set of enterprise rules and apply these enterprise rules to these processes. And because it is applying these standardized rules, the business processes are faster towards customer satisfaction and product development. We talked about integrating functional areas and enterprise processing through the enterprise system. Let's look at a bit more in detail what we mean by this. So in a functional approach, there are functional areas in an enterprise. The typical functional areas are sales, purchasing, production. If it is a manufacturing enterprise, there will be logistics and accounts. Each functional area will have processes. In relation to sales, there would be processes. There are a number of activities conducted in this sales area. That sales process would follow sales order, looking for if it is a sales, then it will look for sales order. If it is a purchasing functional area, it will look for suppliers and place the order. If it is production, it will look for customer specification to produce. If it is logistics, it will look for delivering products and invoicing customers. If it is accounts, it will match sales order and customer invoice with cash received. So each functional area will have a set of processes that it follows. A traditional approach is for these functional areas to retain their data in their functional areas. But what would happen in that scenario is that the functional area will become strengthened with the data that they have. But on the other hand, a drawback of that is that other functional areas will be deprived of those data and be benefited from those data. For example, sales will have sales functional data, but human resources will not know about the sales functional data, or the production will not know the sales functional data. But on the other hand, they come to know the relevant data relevant to them about sales. They need to help about recruitment for HR, about production in relation to sales for the production. What the ERP software does is that using the software or the set of rules in the software, it will now communicate with the sales, with the functional areas, and then connect with this data that are in these functional areas and bring this data into a common place. There are 5 benefits of enterprise resource planning software. The first is it's one package or one software across many functions if it is one ERP. The best practices are adopted by adopting an ERP software. You also can have a modular structure. For example, you can buy what you want rather than integrating all the functional areas. You can integrate only 2 functional areas, 3 functional areas, and so forth. So you can go into a modular structure rather than the whole structure. And the fourth, no development is required because this ERP software you can buy off the shelf. Fifth is it is configurable to some extent depending on the unique requirements of the enterprise. And sixth is ERP software can reduce errors because it reviews business rules consistently and enter data only once. So once data is entered in one functional area, then ERP will have access to this data and they can share this data with relevant parties and relevant other functional areas as required without re-entering those data and reducing errors. But there are 5 drawbacks of an enterprise resource planning software. It could be complex and could be inflexible because off-the-shelf ERP software is already configured and can be inflexible in changing it to the requirements of the enterprise. Second, is this best practices developed by ERP software is available to everyone who buys it, so there's no unique. The third is it is difficult to configure the software. Software combinations may be better than a single ERP package for certain enterprises, depending on unique features or unique practices that an enterprise would have. Fifth, it may not meet enterprise-specific needs with a standardized product. Enterprises overcome these drawbacks with additional software. And this additional software, while having an enterprise resource planning software, it can have additional software for various functional areas to take care of the sales function, the customers especially, take care of the purchase functions, the suppliers especially, and take care of the logistic function, products especially. The add-on software on the sales function, there are 3 add-on software that we can talk about and available in the market. These add-on software also can be bought in the market. They're off-the-shelf CRM, CSS, and SFA. CRM is the customer relationship management software. This add-on software, additional software, aims to build and maintain customer relationships. And the second is the self-service customer self-service software. It's efficient and effective because whenever customer has certain questions or generic questions, the customer can type in those questions and the system will answer those questions at any time. Salesforce automation software, it automates the ordering processes, inventory monitoring, order tracking, and employee performance. So this different additional software does different things about the sales function. The add-on software of enterprise resource planning system keeps evolving. For example, in the sales process, there was initially the manual traditional system, and then it migrated, it transformed into software as a service for enterprises, and then it evolved into enterprise planning as a software, as a service connected to social media and business intelligence systems. Then it has evolved into sales relating to software that integrates into the enterprise resource planning systems to look at product management, to help with product management and inventory management. The contemporary approach in the sales process or sales add-on software is to focus on customer experience management. And the next evolution of this additional software, add-on software, is about to study and examine online buying behavior of customers to assist enterprises to understand customers better. For example, software that helps efficient and effective functioning of sales department. It will make the digital records about customers, the contact information, buying information about the customer, and it will build sales pipeline of customers and prospects. And it makes it easier to communicate with customers now and later because it has already obtained this information about the customer preferences and customers' buying behavior. It analyzes customers' buying behavior, affordability, and so forth, and therefore the enterprises now can offer more personalized communication and more personalized product offerings to customers. What it does, this additional software or the add-on software, it increases the efficiency and decreases operating costs. It also increases the effectiveness in the enterprise by increasing customer satisfaction. Around 70% of customer queries can be solved by self-service. Therefore, it increases the effectiveness of the customer satisfaction. Also, it increases the efficiency by decreasing operating costs. It has 24-hour access, no transportation time for the customer, a step-by-step troubleshooting for customers using artificial intelligence to come up with answers to the questions they have. There's robotic automation to examine the customer requirements, the stock orders, and so forth, and inform the customer accordingly. and there's regular updates of any outstanding queries to the customer. There are 6 ways ERP software module can increase efficiency and effectiveness. First, it serves the current customers. Second, it also can identify prospective customers. The third is because this data is collected about customers, it can mine and filter relevant data from the databases about prospective and current customers. It can generate automated proposals and quotes for customers. It can automate business partners to calculate commissions, stock levels, and workflow processes. And also, it can be used on smartphones. We talked about the sales function add-on software. Let's now talk about add-on software for purchase function. There are 2 add-on softwares, SCM and SRM. SCM is the supply chain management software. It's about enterprise managing the supply chain, looking at the demand for the products, acquiring inventory, manufacturing, distributing, and selling the product on time. The second aspect is relationship management with suppliers. It manages the interactions of the enterprise with the suppliers of goods and services. The purchase process segment of the supply chain include 5 aspects: planning for materials, procurement or acquisition, bringing them to the warehouse, distributing, and then accepting repairs and returns. There are 9 ways a purchase function add-on software can increase efficiency and effectiveness. First, this software helps for on-time inventory acquisitions. Second, it collaborates people, processes, and goods. Third, it monitors of logistical links on the supply chain. Fourth, it assists in inventory requisitions. Fifth, it can look at or automate inventory quotation and then assist on approving those quotations based on purchasing policy. It can send purchase orders. It can also initiate inventory to be shipped to customers and track orders. It can initiate inventory items to be received and accepted, items rejected and returned to the suppliers. I can also collaborate and connect with payment made to suppliers. We looked at the add-on software in relation to sales function, purchase function. There are also add-on software in relation to production function. The add-on software on production function examines the product life cycle management It manages the product data during a product life, from beginning with the design of the product to the manufacture to the disposal of the product at end of the life. So 3 aspects in the production function of add-on ERP software is, at the beginning, it will capture the ideas, design and manufacture during the product development stage. It will look at the distribution, use and support, and in the period it will retire and dispose and reuse the product. Yes. It's called a character, a basic unit of data. It could be a letter, number, or a special character. Then there is a field in the data table that collects the related characters comprising an attribute, such as a number given to a customer. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the customer identification number or student identification number. And then the horizontal line or the horizontal row would be the record about the customer. Let's take a student, for example. In that situation, S 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be in one field, and then another field or another cell, it would be the first name, another cell, it would be the last name, another cell in the same row, it could be the address, and so forth. So there will be a lot of data in different fields across the row that identify the customer or the student. So one field or one cell will have S 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next cell, let's say A1 in the Excel spreadsheet would have that S 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next cell is the row, let's take the row 1. So in row 1, the column 2 would have Alex. Row 1, column 3 would have Alexander. Row 1, column 4, number 1. Row 1, column 5, Mitchell Street. Row 1, column 6, Darwin. Row 1, column 7 is Australia. It's on the row 1, which is the record. So likewise, we would have number of rows like that for each customer. So this, if we visualize an Excel spreadsheet, this table that we have under each row, with each row filled with customers' details, would comprise a sales about some information about the sales or the customers. So the customer database or any database would start with a bit or a binary character if required. If it is not there, at least it will start with characters. Then there would be a field that we were talking about, that is a cell in Excel, and then a record, that is the row that we were talking about. Then a file, that Excel file would comprise, for example, customer information. So would have that. And then there could be separate another file about the customer. It would be about customer transcript or customer sales records, purchase, the sales frequencies and so forth. And then these files brought together makes the database. So we have a row for each customer, and there are fields, there are the cells, and in each field there are characters. A database would have a basic level as a binary digit. If at all, it will start with a character, and the characters would form a field. A set of fields will form a record, and a set of records will form a file, and set of files will form a database. So that's the hierarchical arrangement of a database. When we build an enterprise resource planning system, enterprise resource planning system has to bring data from different functional areas, and these different functional areas can use different software. So enterprise resource planning system is a software. It follows a certain set of instructions, and the software that each functional area uses will also follow certain set of rules depending on the software they use. For example, PowerPoint software would follow a set of instructions, and Word would follow a set of instructions. Excel would follow a set of instructions. So different software will follow a set of instructions, different instructions, and what it can do and what it can't do depends on the rules it follows. But the enterprise resource planning or the ERP system follows a set of rules, but it has to bring this data into a center place. So it has a challenging task. Sometimes, because there's incompatibility or disharmony between these rules, set of rules that the software follows, it has to now has a way of communicating between this set of rules. It's like two languages, for example. How do we communicate these two languages? And to do that, there are also software that helps to do that. Let's say there are two languages, two spoken languages. One is the ERP language, and then there's Excel language. There are a set of instructions. And how do we communicate? There should be a third person who understands both languages and then translate this. And then whatever that Excel is saying, then it translates into a way that ERP software understands, and vice versa. This software that communicates like that is called a middleware. This middleware, there are two types of middleware software. One is called Application Program Interface. Application Program Interface is about the applications that the enterprises use, like the applications that we were talking about for various activities that we use, like PowerPoint, Excel, and so forth. And it uses application program software interface to translate or to bring data into the ERP. It's one middleware type of software. The other is the enterprise application integration approach software. It is where there are add-on software. They are quite different, like CRM, customer relationship management software, supply chain management software. Then there are legacy systems or old systems that were followed by the enterprise to retain data and so forth. Now, how do we integrate the data that are captured by this different software into the ERP? And it is done by a more extended type of software called EAI, is Enterprise Application Integration Approach Software. When we come up with systems integration using ERP software, we want to create value for the enterprise. The enterprise value creation looks at activities performed by the value chain of the enterprise. The Porter's value chain model identifies primary activities and supporting activities. It talks about inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, then marketing and selling, and then servicing the customers. To support this primary activities, then there's the structure of the firm, there's human resources, managing human resources, getting the products, purchasing the products, and then the technology. So the value chain has two aspects. There's upstream value chain aspect and downstream value chain aspects. Upstream is about going backwards to the organization suppliers and looking at how we can increase value for the enterprise. Downstream is going forward towards the customer and looking at how we can increase value for the enterprise. Because this value chain starts from raw materials and then it's acquired through the suppliers, then manufactured if it is a manufacturing organization, distributed to the suppliers, and the customers finally receive it. And that this value chain has to be managed effectively to increase the value, enterprise value. So add-on software can help support the value chain. The downstream value chain is supported by the sales processes, add-on software, and the upstream is supported by the add-on software relating to purchase processes, and the production processes add-on software would support both upstream and the downstream processes.